Okay, hi guys, Mr. Robinson here. I'm in the Comm Tech classroom. We're going to do a little bit of safety on classroom safety, specifically on keeping the floor safe and clear, and in particular regarding extension cords, because we all know that in a Comm Tech classroom we have all sorts of cords that can run across the floor. Extension cords, communication cords, printer cables, and so on. So we'll do a little bit on that to get us started for the semester. So first off, extension cords. Obviously, to have an extension cord on the floor like this is unsafe. It is definitely a tripping hazard. So there's a couple things that we can do to rectify that. We have here a cable cover. Okay, so this is like a floor mat, basically, a heavy rubber mat. And as you can see, it has a channel running down in here that the cables would run through. Now it does move a little bit, so what we can do is add some tape on top of it, but it is definitely safer than just having cables and cords running across the floor. The other thing we can use is what's called tunnel tape. Now it looks very similar to duct tape. It comes in different widths. This I believe is 2-inch. You can get 3-4-inch widths depending on what you need. Now the difference between tunnel tape and duct tape is that duct tape will eventually peel off and it will leave a sticky residue on the floor and or the cable, and in some cases, if it's been on the cable for an extended period of time, it can actually soften the insulation of the cable and eventually ruin the cable. As far as duct tape on the floor goes, if you're in a classroom with wooden floors, duct tape can actually peel the clear coat off of the floor, and that will upset your caretaking staff. Okay, so we want to use something that's called tunnel tape. And what tunnel tape is, it's only sticky on the outside edges. There's no adhesive running down the center of the tape so that it won't affect the cables, the integrity of the cable, and it also won't affect the floor, the clear coat on the floor. Okay, so we want to replace our duct tape with something called tunnel tape. As far as power bars go, we all are using these in the Comm Tech classroom because of all the electrical components that we're using. One feature of a power bar is that in some cases, or a lot of instances, they have these slots cut into the back of them. And the reason those slots are there is to hang this on a wall. So we would install 2 screws in the wall and we could hang this power bar on the wall. If we are unable to screw into the wall, I know a lot of boards don't like us putting holes in the wall, or if it's a concrete wall, then we could use some type of a double-sided tape to adhere this to the wall. Two main issues with the power bar on the ground like that is obviously it's a tripping hazard, but the other one is the possibility of tripping the on-off switch on the power bar. Any piece of equipment that is stationary, in other words, any piece of equipment like this heavy-duty cutter here that's not going to move for the lifetime it's in the classroom, needs to be hardwired, as this one is. There's a safety on-off switch here, and as you can see, the wiring is hardwired into the school's electrical system. If the piece of equipment's not going to move, you need to call get in touch with your ACL or your caretaking staff and have the piece of equipment hardwired into the classroom. Obviously, cameras and lighting systems, those move around a lot, so we don't hardwire those in. But in something like this case, we would hardwire this into the electrical system. Okay, so here we have an extension cord that's had duct tape holding it down on the floor for quite some time. And when we peel the duct tape off, you can actually see the adhesive is stuck to the cord, and that makes a mess. And also what it does, like I mentioned earlier, is it softens up the cord, and it can compromise the integrity of the cable itself. Okay, so we want to try to avoid using duct tape. Okay, so here we have a computer desk table. It's obviously been shortened in height or adjusted down. You might be familiar with the holes in the back of these tables. These holes aren't there to throw your garbage into, believe it or not. They're actually there to run your cables through. And you can see down in the back of this table here, we have this channel that runs down here. These are in place to hold your cables. So as opposed to having the cables run across the floor like this, we would route the cables through the hole in the table and tuck them up there into the channel like that. Okay, so that's the purpose of these holes built into these computer tables. Okay, so to close out this safety video, I with me. Miss Reynolds has just returned from a leave due to an injury that took place in a Comm Tech classroom, and she missed half a year because of this avoidable injury. So I'll hand it over to Miss Reynolds and she'll explain to you what happened.
So what happened was there was a metal cable sort of looped around this hole here. You can't see, but it's under the desk.
Okay.
It was looped around with a padlock, so there was no release to it. I got my foot caught in it somehow, and I didn't realize, and I got up suddenly, and it twisted my ankle around, and it made me fall forward. And it was a very painful experience. Immediately knew something serious was wrong. So the paramedics had to come to the hospital. I had to have surgery, and they put in a metal plate and some screws into my bone here. And I couldn't walk for about 4 months. I was in a wheelchair. It was horrible, and it was all because of this accident that could have been avoided if this cable had been cut off the desk, because it really served no purpose. So that's my story.
Okay, so there you have it. There's safety in a Comm Tech classroom, specifically regarding keeping the floors clear of cables and whatnot. So a quick review, we talked about what type of adhesive to use on the floor for running cables across the floor. Try to avoid using duct tape and use something called tunnel tape. We talked about locating a power bar against a wall so it's off the floor. This is also a good idea in the basement of your home in case there's flooding with a power bar on the floor. It's liable to get wet and you have electrical issues. Okay, so we want to locate the power bar against the wall as opposed to having it run along the floor. We talked about cord covers, the rubber floor mats we use for covering cords that might run across a desk, underneath a desk or something to that effect. Okay, as opposed to just having the cables loosely run across the ground. We talked about hard wiring in any pieces of stationary equipment in the classroom. Large pieces of equipment that won't move should get wired right into the electrical system of the school. You can contact your ACL or your caretaking staff. And then we talked about desk cables, using the holes drilled in the back of desk cables to run your monitor wire, your printer wire, your mouse wire, your camera wire, etc. through the hole of the back of the desk as opposed to just letting them drag across the floor. So that's it for Comm Tech Safety. I'm Mr. Robinson. We'll see you soon.